And Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. And it's, of course, Adam Caplan on a Tuesday as we take a look at all the things that the guys at the Inside the Birds podcast are talking about, including Adam Caplan's camp tour, which has taken a couple spins here recently, taking a look at teams in L.A., the Rams, the Chargers, Vegas, the Raiders, the Giants, and the Lions. Their joint practice today, which apparently had a bunch of fights. We'll take a look at the Brandon Aiyuk situation. The Eagles obviously have a lot going on as well. You know, the Eagles play on Friday night. You can hear that game on 97.3 ESPN. One thing for sure that we're all going to be kind of keeping an eye on is, will the starters end up playing it all? You know, the Eagles have kind of done new things during training camp, a lot more action than in years past. They did mini camps this year, but they didn't do it in years past. So Jalen Hurts, by all accounts, really sharp. Will we see him get a couple of snaps in the preseason? A lot of talk about whether or not the Eagles should go that direction. Do you guys out there want to see the Eagles play their starters? You know, I hear a lot of people say, I got to see the Eagles starters play. You know, they didn't play at all last year. And you might say, so what? They opened up the season 10-1. They didn't play in the preseason last year. They went 10-1 to start the season. So I guess the question I would have is, do we really think that if they played in the preseason last year, that may have changed their fortunes down the stretch? I have a hard time buying that. So, look, I don't want to dismiss what the preseason may or may not do, but I have no desire to see my guy get hurt in a preseason game. So I'll pass on the preseason, but we'll see if the Eagles do plan on playing some of their players in the preseason. Like I said, last year they got off to a 10-1 start. So the preseason or no preseason, they still got off to a great start. If they would have played preseason games last year, I don't know that they would have finished any stronger than 1-6 down the stretch. Let's bring Adam Caplan in because it's preseason all over the place. Everybody starts this week, and some teams are in camp. They've got joint practices going on, and Adam's checking out those. And Brandon Aiyuk, he could be leaving the 49ers, and boy, that would really change the dynamics of the NFC. Let's bring in Adam Caplan from the Inside the Birds podcast. Adam, what's up, buddy?
Mike, good to talk to you. Yeah, so I've been on this tour. I'm taking a little break here. I'm home for a couple more days. My trip to Miami was canceled due to the hurricane, and they were hosting the Falcons for joint practice. So I'm home for a little bit in my office. But I want to talk about the Brandon Aiyuk situation. It's fascinating because they've been at stalemate for months. Like they had a number in mind. They're not close. They haven't been able to find a middle ground. To avoid getting fined, he's having a hold-in. He showed up, but he's not working. He's in meetings, though, but he's not practicing. And then you've got plenty of interest. The Browns are fascinating, Mike, as we go through the teams here. We'll start with them. And when I look into this situation, it makes a little bit more sense. You know, the Browns did not extend Mark Cooper's deal. He had no guaranteed money left in his contract, so they pretty much guaranteed all of his base salary of $20 million this season. So to save cap space, they restructured it, but they guaranteed his money, but he's not signed for the season. You might remember Elijah Moore, who they acquired a few years ago from the Jets, a former second-round pick for the Jets. He also is on the final year of his rookie deal. And then after that, you've got Jerry Jeudy, who they extended at over $17 million a season. So think about it. After the season, if they don't re-sign Cooper or Moore, you really only have Cedric Tillman. I'm old enough to remember his dad. I played for the Broncos a couple decades ago. You just don't have much. So they feel really good. And by the way, Deshaun Watson's having a decent camp. He's finally healthy off of the multiple shoulder problems and surgeries. So they're trying to get this thing moving forward here, and they want to make a big jump. So that's the Browns' angle of it. The Patriots, in my reporting, in my free agent notebook at Pro Football Network, I noted that the Patriots were calling teams, like everybody. They tried to sign Calvin Ridley. It was down to the Patriots, Titans, and Jaguars, and he wound up signing with the Titans. He wanted to stay down south. But when you look at the Patriots situation, I mean, they called the Eagles. for A.J. Brown. They were told he was not available, and of course, A.J. signed another extension, $32 million a year. So they're looking. They've got the rookie quarterback. They're really light at receiver. They need help, and the Steelers they're really light at receiver. Yes, George Pickens was a sort of a breakout player last season. Rowan Wilson, their third-round pick out of Michigan, he's hurt with an ankle injury. Though I'm told he'll be ready for the season, he's just not ready yet. He got hurt last week, and he was doing really well. And Van Jefferson, who's more of like an NFL fourth receiver, he's now starting opposite Pickens because they don't have anyone else. So they have interest in Aiyuk. But this is not typically what the Steelers do, Mike. They typically trade away players, like they trade away Deontay Johnson, who is a veteran, who's a pretty good player, who's doing well with the Panthers in training camp. But because they're looking to upgrade that position, they remain interested. And then Washington, I'm told, that they talked to them during the draft. They really like Brandon Aiyuk. So I keep an eye on them, but it's just there was a note from ESPN that Pittsburgh's back in it. They were kind of out earlier this week, so they're back in it. But it's fascinating, Mike, when a player of this stature, Brandon Aiyuk, who's an absolute stud, becomes available. If you need a receiver, you got to be interested because this guy is that good. But the big holdup also is his contract. That thing, because he's going to be changing teams, he most likely will, should be around at least what A.J. Brown got at $32 million a year. Remember the A.J. Brown, the first deal that he got with Eagles, Mike, that was heavily backloaded. That was a fluffed-up deal. This new one is not. That's a legit $32 million a season.
What does it mean for San Francisco in terms of the NFC hiker? We were talking about this before you came on, Adam. I don't know that you're aware of this stat, but no team in the NFC has lost the Super Bowl one year and made it back the next year in 50 years. The last team to do it was the 73 Vikings, 74 Vikings. They lost both of those games. So that's what the Niners are up against right now in the NFC. What does this do if they lose Aiyuk?
All right, so this just happened. So Ricky Pearsall, their first-round pick from the University of Florida, this was a surprise when they took him. But what I was told was they just took the player with the highest-graded number on their board, and that was the guy who came up, Ricky Pearsall, who was supposed to go in the top 40. Well, Pearsall, who came off NFI last week with a hamstring injury, I'm told he was looking great. Then he hurt his shoulder today, so that's getting checked out. So Pearsall will have to start at some point. If it's not this season, which right now, if Aiyuk's on the roster, he wouldn't be starting. But if this deal does not get done for Aiyuk to be traded, which I find hard to believe, being that they're nowhere close to a deal, and for some reason he's back, but not extended, and then he walks, Pearsall will start next season. Mike, the way it works in the NFL, a first-round pick within his first 4 years must start or you missed. There's no debate. That's the way it works. I'm talking to personnel people. You got to get it right. Remember now, they're paying Deebo Samuel a lot of money. There's no guaranteed money past the season they can get out of that deal. And Aiyuk is up after the season. So Ricky Pearsall is going to be starting, certainly, if not this season, next season.
All right. Adam's camp tour is underway, and you got a chance to see a couple of teams. Let's go way out west to California and check in on the Raiders, who have removed the interim tag from Antonio Pierce. Our old buddy Gardner Minshew is battling, or is he battling for the quarterback job? Is it Aiden O'Connell, 5-4 last year in 9 games? That's an interesting team now with Pierce and, of course, Adams, who a lot of buzz about him possibly getting moved.
Yeah, he's not getting moved. That was just him on a podcast. I could tell you for a fact, talking to Raiders, they're certainly not looking to move him to start the season. Now, if they're out of it by late October, early November, things can change. But let's not forget, Mike, they were 8-9 last season, with Aiden O'Connell closing out the season as a starter. That's after Josh McDaniels, their head coach, was traded. He was fired at the trade deadline. It was so bizarre how he was canned. And you mentioned Antonio Pierce, who Pierce and I worked together at ESPN at the same time. I'm rooting for Pierce. It's he's had this tough mentality, coming up from the California area in Compton. He's from there, and I loved talking to him at the owners' meetings about what he wants, and he wants a physical football team, but he doesn't want to be pigeonholed as a defensive guy. Because he doesn't want them to be like this run first, run all the time thing. Because look, you mentioned Devontae Adams and just Jacoby Myers, and remember now they drafted. Look, Mike, they drafted tight ends high the last 2 drafts. Michael Mayer out of Notre Dame, who was one of the best tight ends last year, to come out for the draft, didn't have a great season. And Brock Bowers was a surprise, Mike.
Yeah.
As a first-round pick. That was a surprise. So they're going to be heavy 12 personnel. Now, this practice I was at last Saturday, 3 days ago in Costa Mesa, it was at night. That, by the way, that's where the Chargers used to practice. They're now at the Bolt in El Segundo near LAX. But it was a 2-hour practice, low 70s. And, Mike, this is, in my career, I've never seen this before. I didn't time it, but I know it was at least a half an hour. They hit, Mike, live tackling for over half an hour. It's between 30 and 45 minutes. I've never seen it this long. And then after that, after practice, after they ended it, the players ran gassers, which is in uniform, jogging back and forth. It were actually a light run or a jog. I mean, you want to talk about trying to be tough? I mean, it was incredible. I had not seen a practice have live tackling for this long. And usually when you live tackle, it's 3 to 5 minutes at the most. But this is something else last Saturday night. By
the way, real quick, geez, we talk about Aiyuk holding or the possible trade. Christian McCaffrey, calf strain, will not participate in the preseason. Yep. Just has a weird feel out there. I'll tell you. It does. A lot of weird feel. Yep,
Mike. For fantasy, this is the thing. I drafted him last year over Bijan Robinson. Turned out to be a great choice. That does worry me a little bit because he had a little calf issue late last season. So look, he's 28 now. I think great football player. Very good chance to go to the Pro Football Hall of Fame someday. But McCaffrey, he just turned 28 in June. That would worry me a little bit. So, and you talk about the NFC East, the NFC, Mike. Before we get out of here, they're still the best team. Okay, there's no question about it. I'm not worried about Brock Purdy's interceptions in training camp. That doesn't really worry me. I'm thinking a lot more about the Eagles than I did probably to start training camp because I think the roster is better than I thought. There's better competition. We'll talk more when we preview Friday night's game with the Eagles and Ravens. I also visited the Ravens recently. We'll talk more about the roster. But by the way, C.J. Gardner-Johnson has a shoulder injury. I'm told it's okay.
Yep.
I don't know if he'll be back next week, but it's not too bad. But I worry about this with Gardner-Johnson. He's had a lot of shoulder, pectoral. You worry about that kind of stuff, Mike. He's a smaller guy. He's small and compact. Really good football player, but he's had injury history.
All right, real quick, you were Rams-Chargers. Rams were an NFC playoff team last year. We were talking about teams that made the playoffs last year that maybe don't go back this year. On average, 6 teams that made it one year do not go back the next. Rams-Chargers, either of those playoff teams?
Chargers, no. I know the Vegas odds makers have the over as the play 8.5. I don't see it. I know that Harbaugh's an incredible coach, wins everywhere he goes. I'm worried about that Justin Herbert plantar fascia injury. Not that he can't play, but those linger. So that would worry me a little bit. The Rams, Mike, I was with them Sunday. I had to leave right before Puka Nacua suffered a knee injury, but they're a team that overachieves every year with Sean McVay. Matthew Stafford looks great. My issue with them is on the back end. That Raheem Morris, who's now the Falcons head coach, did a great job last season as a defensive coordinator for the Rams. Now, Chris Shula is taking over as defense coordinator, first-time play caller. We got to see how that works out. They're going with veteran corners now. They're much older there. Tre'Davious White, who's had a big injury history. Darius Williams comes back. Mike, I don't have their over-under total here. I think they're around 8 or 9 wins, to be honest with you, in the NFC West.
Let's go to a lot of fights today, from what I understand. Lions, Giants, East Rutherford yesterday and today. Everybody loves the Lions. Nobody likes the Giants. Do they look comparable in the field?
You know what? I got to say this about the Giants. A lot of speed. I was with, and I counted 4. I was at the joint practice yesterday. They had another one today. Very chippy yesterday. By the way, the Lions are like that. I'm told that's the way that they practice. They're very aggressive. That's the mindset that Dan Campbell wants. But if you're a Giants fan listening, Malik Neighbors is the real deal. They're moving around and create matchups. Jalen Hyatt can run. He's just not the most physical guy. Darius Slayton is a really good defense. Wandale Robinson is their slot receiver, is explosive in a short area. I do worry, though, without Saquon Barkley. Devin Singletary is just an ordinary running back. Did have a good year for Houston, but they didn't want him back. They don't even know who their number 2 back is. That would worry me a little bit. Daniel Jones is healthy. I saw him roll out and throw on the move, so he's healthy. They've addressed their offensive line. I'm not saying it's going to be great, but this is the most talent that with John Michael Schmitz now in his second year at center, they're feeling a lot better about him. John Runyon Jr., Andrew Thomas is healthy finally, knock on wood. Jermaine Illuminor grew up as a Giants fan who's probably going to be the right tackle. Not good for Evan Neal, who's not ready and who's been a major disappointment as a first-round pick.
All right, there you go. A little look at the Giants and the Lions, who, by the way, with the Niners kind of reeling, man, they might be the new favorite in the NFC. Do you like the Lions better, or do you like somebody else as that next team?
They've greatly addressed their secondary. They've got 3 new corners, but my problem is their pass rush. Other than Aiden Hutchinson, man, they don't have much.
Yeah,
that's the only issue is their pass rush. But man, they're absolutely loaded. Their offense didn't have a good day on Monday, I was told, but it doesn't matter. It's practice and training camp. They're really loaded, though, Mike. Great offensive line, good receiver core, good at tight end, really phenomenal at running back. And for those people who thought Jared Goff was done, you would be wrong. He had a really good year last season.
Real quick, I know you got to roll. Did you peruse the Eagle depth chart that came out?
No, I never look at them. I haven't looked at one. Here's why, folks. They're not. They're unofficial and they're generally not correct. But I'll look at it. I'll look at it before we do Friday's game just to get an idea.
I'm just going to give you a quick little quirk,
right.
Okay?
All right, go ahead.
Edge, Bryce Huff, defensive tackle, 3 of them. Davis, Carter, Williams, edge, Sweat. There you go.
Well, actually, no, but they will start in their 5-man front. They start 3D tackles, and they have 2 overhangs who are not linebackers, as Vic Fangio, thank goodness he said that. They're not.
Well, the 2 linebackers, they're actually 4. They're all listed as first team. White, Bond, Dean, and Trotter.
Yep. Oh, Trotter, really? That's it. Well, it's funny. We'll talk more about this Friday. I have a theory on Trotter, but they got to be better inside backer, Mike. It's just it has not been good. It's a little worse than I expected. I'll be honest with you. I had higher hopes.
Your corners, by the way, Slay is 1, and Rogers and Ringo are tied for the other.
I mean, that is correct because I know that for a fact. But Mike, a lot of the times because sometimes it's like a PR intern.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're generally not correct. That happens to be correct. I hadn't even looked at it, but I'll look at it for discussion points on Friday. But we'll preview that game. What to look for when you watch the game Friday night in our segment on Friday.
All right, bud. We'll catch up with you then.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Adam Caplan, everybody.